So Hanson, how are you?
We're pretty good.
Yeah? You just arrived in London?
We've actually
days
been in
ago.
London for a few days.
Are you here for very long?
Well,
Staying for a while?
we were here for a couple of weeks. We just doing some stuff before the shows, and then we got 5 shows next week where we're doing sort of something called 5 to 5, where every night we're playing a different album in its entirety, and then the last night is our new album.
So that's the King's College.
Yes,
isn't it?
King's College. So 5 nights at King's College, yeah.
So you're over here promoting the latest album, Shout It Out, isn't it?
Mhm.
That's right.
What can we expect from the new record?
Well, I mean, partly with the album, some context for Hanson helps.
Yeah.
Where we've come from, and we've always talked about classic soul music and rock and roll. I mean, we're fans of music, so you're always looking for inspirations and listening. But this album, in a way, I think it definitely come full circle as far as just what we're highlighting in the music. It's a little more R&B, a little bit more of a backbeat to it than the last couple albums. As far as an overall record,
Yeah.
and it's just a really organic feeling album. It's like there's not really any extra fat on it. It's just really stripped down to the arrangements and to the melodies, and I think hopefully it's an album that reminds people sort of what makes Hanson kind of unique, and I think it comes back to the songs and the melodies.
I think in broad sense, and a few people have written about the record in the U.S. and kind of said it's kind of like organic, kind of soulful pop or something like that. I think in broad senses, I think that's a pretty decent description of kind of what it is that this record is, but certainly in general, kind of what it is that we do in some form or another is kind of, because it comes from that love of R&B, but also the love of pop music in general.
Because you've always had that a bit of a feel of the sort of Motown-ish, haven't you? In your music.
We grew up listening to that stuff, and I think hopefully we channel a little bit of it, just because that would be a huge compliment.
Cross our fingers that some Motown, it's a good old rock and roll seeps in there somewhere.
The other thing about our band though is, I mean, you try and put labels on it, but sometimes the things you're thinking in your head don't necessarily all translate. And because even when we don't mean to, there's a little bit of there's an organic, rootsy
kind of
quality to the way we
Midwest country element sometimes.
I don't know if I'd say country, but we've got. We have a little bit of an earthy feeling to our records and the way we, partly because of our harmonies and just the fact that we really kind of we admire musicianship, and we like the fact that we want it to be real, and so I think it's rock and roll. I mean, rock and roll was basically like a little bit of the dusty Americana with some blues and some gospel and all of that smashed together.
And that's some nice polished pop
sensibility.
Yeah.
So you're going to be touring you're going to be doing these 5 shows at King's College.
Yeah.
What can we expect from the live shows?
Well, the shows are literally the Hanson repertoire
from top to bottom.
You're going through 5 albums, aren't you, from Sunday through Thursday?
Through Friday. We
have a break on Thursday.
Last
It's
one.
4 nights.
One little break.
4 nights in a row, and then 1 day break, and then we conclude with the final night, which is the new album.
So is it each night is dedicated to
The record.
each record, and is it only music played from those records?
Each night, so on the first night we'll play all of Middle of Nowhere in the order of the album as it was, and then the second night will be This Time Around, third night Underneath, fourth night The Walk, and then the last night is Shout It Out. And so it's the plan is to play them as a record, sort of like listening to the records, only they're being performed live by us instead of your stereo. And it's a different kind of show than we normally play. When we normally play a show, we decide to set 10 minutes before we go on stage and change it while we're on stage, and sort of there's songs you play a lot, songs that people know, songs that people expect to hear, singles and things that you play a lot. But you try and you mix it up every night to keep it fresh for yourself. But these shows, every fan in the audience is going to know what the next song is, because it's the order of each record. And that it makes it different in a good way. I think it's sort of the anticipation, the expectations. I think I enjoy these shows because it is refreshing for me, to know what you're about to do next. To think of it more like one giant piece of music rather than a lot of little songs. It's one album. It flows, and for that reason, because you're playing an album, songs aren't necessarily in the same place you would put them in a different kind of show. Mmm-Bop is the second song we'll play, and we'll end with Man from Milwaukee on the first night, for instance, which is a hidden track from that record that, it's sort of like it's.
Fans must lap that up because it's things like it's songs like that, like the hidden tracks, for example, and the songs that aren't released that fans don't really get to hear much of, and it's not many bands are actually doing that these days, are they?
There's definitely songs that we don't play live that we will be playing during these shows. Songs I think of. There's a Yearbook off of the first record. There's a song called Turn It Down off of The Walk. Fire in the Mountain off The Walk. Songs that we almost never play, and these are shows where
every single one gets played.
Where every song gets played, and it makes it special. It's fun for us because you don't play certain songs oftentimes just because they're hard. They're hard to pull off, and you really have
and
to.
It's also hard to
dedicate,
find a spot in the show sometimes for certain songs too.
You've got to dedicate a lot of energy to making that song feel right.
Yeah.
And for these shows, it just felt, you knowing going into it, preparing for it, you really can take the extra time to go, okay, we're going to be ready to play these songs that are just that different arrangement that, why are we playing this song in Dead again?
Yeah, exactly.
So if we go back to the start,
how
did it all start for you guys? Because you were all quite young. I mean, you were 12 when Mmm-Bop came out.
Yeah.
I mean, and that wasn't even the first work that you had
definitely
done.
not. No,
So how did it all start? How did Hanson?
In fact, you were actually 11.
Well, I was 11. Yeah.
11.
We were. I mean, the very first music we heard was when we were kids, and the fact that really young kids. I mean, I was 6, or 7 when I first remember hearing harmony and just being able to harmonize with stuff.
I was
in the genes.
I was actually talking about that because we were kind of going through some of this kind of stuff, talking about the history in general, and when we were in 1989, when we went to South America for a year with our dad, because the whole family went down there because he was in with his job, and we were listening to the late 50s rock and roll because that was the only stuff we had. Because we weren't listening to Spanish radio down there. Yeah, exactly. And so, and I remember asking Taylor the other day, like, I don't remember anyone ever teaching you to harmonize. So, like, all of a sudden we're like singing songs, and then Taylor's able to go,
Certain things are just in the genes, and you can't really say whether it's credit to you or not. It just shows up. And
I think it's because our folks were definitely singers and definitely kind of had that in them for sure.
I mean, really, just quickly within a few years, it was with friends and family. They kind of saw like, oh, you guys can sing, and we would sing in living rooms and sing at gatherings with friends and stuff. And it in the summer or the spring of 1992, we threw our name into the arts festival in Tulsa, around town.
We auditioned.
And we got a little slot, and we did our first show. And next year, that'll be 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So I think from there,
that's scary.
Early on, we very quickly had a collective identity as a band. We had our own opinions about songs and started writing songs really quickly, and felt strongly about that. And you see somebody on TV, another band, or you hear old recordings of the Jackson 5 or other bands that were young, and go, oh yeah, we can do that. So I think we had a kind of strong sense of purpose and self from the beginning. And really, if you look at all the decisions we've made since we were a local indie band, licking stamps, and putting them on flyers and sending them out.
Playing, I don't know, I guess at some point we were probably playing close to 3 shows a week early on.
All the way through, past the indie days and having a ton of success. we've really always had the same kind of credo of just, you know, we don't need anyone else necessarily to tell us whether it's good or not. I mean, of course, your audience will tell you whether it's good or not when you play it.
Yeah, because they'll either be there or not.
And so I think you just have to be, you know, you have to be willing to kind of right the ship if you feel like you're kind of up your own, you know, up in your own crap, you know, and thinking that you're great, and be willing to go, oh, that wasn't that good. But as far as the initial idea, we've always been sort of self-driven and motivated, and that's kind of, I think, part of why we're still here, why we're still doing it.
Yeah. So you had some issues with the record company.
Yeah.
I read. You're now doing your own thing independently. How does it work now? What's the process like for now that you don't have the sort of constraints somewhat of a record?
Well, the interesting thing about, you know, our issues with the record company, they're really not that unique. I think that's the scariest thing. So we were signed by Mercury originally, which was a good label for us. Lots of, you know, bands like Bon Jovi and Cardigans and sort of good pop stuff that sort of fit with Hanson. Rock and roll records, and
a long history of R&B records.
A big merger happened, and that record label, you know, 200 bands were dropped, and we ended up on Island Def Jam, which is sort of run by Def Jam, which is a rap label and urban focused, and it's just sort of like, really? You couldn't have dropped us too, because obviously this
would have been great if you would have dropped it.
Retarded. You don't know, you know, we're not going to put on some bling, and, you know, anyway. And so what we realized was, you know, in an industry where that makes sense, we need to do something different, something that doesn't make sense. And so we formed our own label in 2003 and started releasing our records ourselves. And, you know, that doesn't mean anything really other than we pay for it. In truth,
on the front end,
you know, instead of a label fronting money to promote a record, we front money to promote a record, and we front money to make a record instead of a label fronting money in. And so, you know, we still, you know, hire a company to distribute the records and put them in the retail stores, you know, that are still left, and you know, help work out the deals with the digital distributors, and we still hire, you know, publicity companies and online marketing companies, and buying billboards from this company or that company, and, you know, hire out our radio staff to work their songs at radio. And it's really just sort of a commitment at a different level to your own success or failure, and sort of the commitment to say, you know, when I'm done making the record, I'm going to start picking up the phone and calling people and acting like a businessman to make my record work, rather than, I think, traditionally the position of the artist is sort of, how are we doing? I don't know. You know, I hope my manager's taking care of it. And that's not, you know, that's not a job that every artist wants to take on. And to be honest, it's a job that I don't think any of us really want to take on, other than the necessity to realize in a changing music business where the sort of proliferation of digital technologies has helped and really hurt the business, you have to be willing to invest that much more energy in reaching fans and getting your music out to be successful. You have to sort of go all in or all out. You know, this is a sort of every hand you're putting everything in the pot, because ultimately I think that's what people who are really invested in what they do and wanting to make great art, wanting to sort of change the world through great music that affects people's lives and to carry them with them for years, you know, that's what you do.
Yeah. I have to add on to that one little thing, which I think is that maybe even also looking at it differently than just saying, you know, we're businessmen, quote unquote. I think really what it is it's really an approach of, amongst other things, almost like staying local. Because what is it the local band does when they're trying to get themselves, you know, out there and really do that kind of work that a manager or a record label or something like that would do. So if you kind of stay in that headspace on some level or another, and just always remember that you're going to have to do those kind of things, that I think in general what's kind of cool about where the business is going, there are a lot of challenges, and it's very, very difficult to make money making records. But at the same time, be successful in general at all, frankly, in the music business, period.
And it gives you the freedom as well.
But it gives you the freedom to continue to focus on the music for the sake of the music.
Yeah.
But then ultimately to take that and try and find the best foot that you can put forward and keep the hustle going.
I think part of what I was saying is we run the label so that we can do what we've always done and not be forced to compromise
for the wrong reasons.
Yeah,
compromise your art.
Yeah, it's like the reasons we've been lucky enough to be successful are, you know, the way we look at writing songs, the way we, you know, the things we do as a band. We're going to keep always doing those same things and not let, you know, a rap label or a merger or a this or a that sort of get in the way of being authentic to our own creative vision.
Yeah.
You know? And so as soon as that stuff gets in the way, you've got to get that stuff out of the way and do something different.
The things that have happened around us have been challenging, but the way we've chosen to deal with it has been unique.
Yeah. One last question for you. What's next? You're over here in London promoting records, so what?
In the short term, what's next is an announcement of a tour, hopefully very soon. We're coming back to the UK.
We're anticipating sometime in the autumn, kind of shooting for October, November sometime.
We are going to be back to do a
V Festival.
Play at V Festival, which would be cool. And so, I think that's the next kind of about to happen, and I'm sure there'll probably be a follow-up single here in the UK. And then honestly, we're creatively just thinking ahead for the next projects. I mean, it's hard when you're doing all the things we do within our team to be like, oh, let's carve out a month and just make music. Yeah. But you've got to find ways to do that so that you're just continuing to get ahead of the next project and you're staying inspired and excited.
Yeah, exactly. Because the music,
you gotta get churning on the next thing so that you actually have something to talk about in the next round.
And that's been the biggest challenge, I think, has been to keep when you're doing all this stuff that is not the creative process, to always keep the creative process in mind and to not forget that you're not going to be, you have to keep maintaining that and keep constantly thinking about it. Otherwise, you'll find yourself 2 years down the line and go, oh wait, we got to stop. We got to create a record very quickly.
Ultimately, why else do we do anything else other than for the music and for the ability to write a song and sort of hopefully change somebody's day and maybe their life through great music.